Finally, we're almost at the finish line, dog. We're in the last week of July, which means we're almost past that slow time of year of the sports calendar where baseball is the only sport on TV. Now, that's not a knock on baseball, so you hardcore baseball fans, don't come for me. Training camp has already started this week for a lot of NFL teams, and man, I am ready. Welcome to another edition of Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. I'm Rochelle Hamilton Jr. Training camp time in the NFL brings about optimism, big expectations, positive outlooks for teams, and rightfully so, because everybody is undefeated this time of year. You know, squads have these new coaches, players have new homes, and fellas are just ready to compete. Now, the last few weeks on this podcast, I've been talking about the big storylines from each squad, and the NFC East is up for discussion this time. Now, I got my dog and football/Cowboys connoisseur Jeremy Jones on the pod with me today, and we're going to talk about the division. But first, I want to talk about something going on in the NBA, and specifically in Los Angeles. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that LeBron signed with the Lakers earlier this month, and soon after LeBron signed with the Lakers, some fans went and made murals in different sections of Los Angeles as a tribute to him. Now, in the last month, 2 LeBron murals have been vandalized. And, you know, this really looks pathetic for whoever the haters are that's doing this because, first of all, this is the most positive thing that happened for the Lakers in quite a long time. You know, let's be honest. The Lakers, they haven't really been exactly relevant, you know, since 2010, which was the last time that they won a title. And that's not a knock on Los Angeles. That's not a knock at all, but it's the truth. The Lakers were increasingly irrelevant as the years went by. You know, and then on top of that, LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world, period. And now there's some Lakers fans that are actually mad that he's on their squad. Like, I honestly don't get that because, you know, well, first of all, I'm a LeBron fan, like point blank, period. You know, I like LeBron as a person. I think LeBron's a great guy. He's all about his family, his wife and kids. He's a great business mind. And, of course, he's just a great athlete. He's one of the best basketball players that have ever set foot on an NBA court. And, you know, and I'm not one to get into the whole MJ and LeBron debate. I think GOAT debates are pointless, to be honest with you, because Michael Jordan and LeBron James are playing in 2 different eras of basketball. There's too many different variables to go into that discussion, so I don't even get into the GOAT debate. You know, I've said before on this podcast, when it comes down to the MJ and LeBron debate, my opinion is MJ was a GOAT in his era of basketball. LeBron James is a GOAT in his era. And I just leave it at that. I don't do the GOAT argument. But anyway, you know, and also I'm a LeBron fan. I've never been a Lakers fan. Now, I have to follow the Lakers by default because LeBron is playing in Los Angeles. But I've never been like a hardcore – I haven't been a hardcore fan of any NBA team, really. I just enjoy the sport of basketball. I think it's a great game. It's an awesome display of athletic finesse, physicality, and a chess match between, you know, 12 guys, you know, 5 players on each squad, as well as the 2 head coaches. And, you know, it's a great game. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's like poetry in motion, to really be honest with you. Now, as far as this King of LA mural goes, yes, that was extremely premature because no games have been played up until this point. You know, and I'm a hardcore Broncos fan, but, you know, even if the Broncos were to go out and sign some big-name free agent, like when they got Peyton Manning, well, this really isn't a great example because, to be honest with you, when the Broncos signed Peyton Manning, I was actually disappointed because coming off of 4 neck surgeries, I'm like, dude, neck injuries are nothing to play with. And I honestly thought Peyton Manning I thought he was done, to be honest with you. And I'm glad Peyton Manning shut me up, and I'm glad he proved me wrong. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, I love Peyton Manning. It's just at that point in time, I didn't know how much he had left, and he proved me and the rest of the world wrong. So I'm extremely glad and extremely thankful that the Broncos were able to sign a guy of his caliber. But that's not a great example for what I'm talking about right now. I guess I should take it back to like when the Broncos got Champ Bailey in that trade back in 2004 when they traded Clinton Portis for Champ Bailey with the Redskins. You know, now when that trade happened, I was ecstatic. Like, I was hyped. But I've never been that kind of fan that just, you know, go out and take the time to paint a mural and do all these tributes and all that other stuff. I mean, I'm not going to worship these guys. I mean, at the end of the day, they're human beings like I am. So, from that standpoint, I do agree. It's overdoing it. It's not anything I would do. But at the same time, to vandalize something like that because you're mad that this squad just got the best player in the world and he's on your team, that's mind-boggling to me. I honestly don't get it. LeBron just had one of the best individual postseasons that we've ever seen. Now, of course, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really mean a whole lot because in the finals, it was basically the Cleveland LeBrons against the Golden State Warriors. But, LeBron, I guess these people that's defacing these murals, I don't know if they don't understand, that it's almost like they feel like LeBron is coming to LA to replace Kareem. And LeBron's not in Los Angeles to replace Kareem. He's not there to replace Magic. He's not there to replace Shaq. And he's definitely not going to replace Kobe. LeBron's not in LA to really do any of that. He's in Los Angeles for more than just basketball, as we all know. LeBron James, he's a great businessman. LeBron is setting up for his career after basketball. He's going into year 16. It's time for him, as a smart athlete / businessman, he's setting up for his career after basketball. LeBron's involved in film production, TV production. He's involved in all kinds of stuff business-wise off the court. And who better for him to link up with than Magic Johnson himself, who's proven to be a great business mind in his transition from his playing career to his business career. Now, he's back in basketball, of course, but who better for LeBron to learn from at this point in his career? There were family reasons that he went to Los Angeles, as well as basketball reasons. So it's not like he's there to replace any of these legends. You can't replace any of the legends. So I don't understand why people feel like LeBron is such a threat to any of these Lake Show legends. I honestly don't get that. But, it is, I guess, it is what it is. The surprising thing to me is when he left Cleveland the first time, they burned his jersey because they were mad that he left. Now he's in Los Angeles, and these people are vandalizing these murals because they're mad he's in town. Like, how does that even work? And then on top of that, for you to burn a jersey of a player, that's idiotic to me because you spent your hard-earned money to go buy this jersey to support this player and this team, and now because this player left, you go and you burn the jersey that you spent your hard-earned money on. I don't understand it. I mean, I really don't get that. But, anyway, Lakers fans that are mad that LeBron's in town, like, how does that even work? Well, anyway, let's move on to football. We're talking about the NFC East on the podcast today. In the NFC East, of course, the Eagles won the division as well as the Super Bowl last year. So we're going to talk about big storylines from each squad. Dallas has got a few storylines going on with them. And, how much longer can Jason Garrett hold on in Dallas? What are they going to do? They have to figure out what kind of quarterback Dak Prescott's going to be. What kind of year is he going to have? Zeke, will this be his bounce back year? Over in Philly, what will they look like after winning the Super Bowl? Will they be affected by the Super Bowl hangover? Carson Wentz, he's coming back from that ACL injury. New York, the Giants, of course, they drafted Saquon Barkley with the number 2 pick. What are they going to look like? OBJ, he's coming back from an ankle injury after a forgettable 2017 season. And, of course, the Redskins, they made the trade that surprised really the entire NFL. Once Kirk Cousins left town and robbed the Minnesota Vikings of $84 million, they go and they pick up Alex Smith from the Chiefs. And so what is that? How's that situation going to work? Jay Gruden, he might be on the hot seat depending on how things play out this year. So his job security might be tied up into that move. So a whole lot of things going on in the NFC East. And myself and my dog Jeremy, we're going to go ahead and get into it. We're going to see where he's coming from with the NFC East, especially his squad, the Dallas Cowboys. So it's been a little while since the last time we talked. So how you doing, man?
Man, I've been all right, blessed and, just working like everybody else, trying to pay attention to as much sports as I can. There's a lot going on, so I just always try to stay abreast to what's going on.
Yes, sir. And since you talk about staying afloat with everything that's going on in football, it's been a lot happened since the last time we talked. The Cowboys, they had their draft. I know the last time you were on with me, we talked about what you were looking forward to the Cowboys doing in the draft and why. So, given everything that Dallas did in the draft, what did you think about the draft that Dallas had?
I think they had a pretty mediocre draft, if you ask me. I think we got the guard from Texas. I can't remember his name. But I feel like that was probably a big splash to me. I would have liked to see us address the receivers in the first round with somebody, but they chose to go with Vander Esch, which is when they drafted him, I was like, who? And so I'm hoping, over the years, it's more like, oh, Vander Esch is that guy. So I think when you draft in the first round, if you're not getting somebody that is proven and done some great things, then it's kind of still up in the air. So hopefully he does great things for us. But it's just kind of a little underwhelming. I wish they would have moved up to get some tight ends and stuff like that with the rumors swirling about Jason Witten retirement. And there were a few times where they were in position to move up to get somebody, but they didn't. And it kind of felt like that they were kind of stand pack, we don't need to move up. We're confident in, who we got. And it's like, no, we need people. And, to give up a draft pick here or there to move up a pick or something like that, or to trade picks with somebody, we should have did that to get better players. Because a lot of the players, I don't feel, some of those players that we got, I don't feel like they were higher on our draft board compared to the guys we could have had.
Okay. And what you made mention of the tight end position with Jason Witten retiring. What did you think about the tight end that they ended up grabbing? I can't even remember the dude's name, because I know they were going for that the one guy, Dallas Goedert, and then Philly pulled the savage move on Dallas. I can't even lie. When they jumped ahead of them to grab him in that one spot, I was like, bruh, did Philly really just pull that on them? So what did you think with the tight end that they selected? I can't even remember his name. I'm not even gonna lie.
I felt like that was one of the examples where I would have liked for Dallas to move up, because it's obvious, if Philly was able to move up to get him, that Dallas would have been able to move up to get, the Dallas guy. I can't remember his name, and he would have, fit perfectly in Dallas. His name is Dallas, and he plays for Dallas. I just had marketing dollars written all over it. And,
right.
I feel like Jerry Jones and those guys kind of blew that by not moving up to, draft him. And now he's with a rival team that we have to face, and they already have, the Ertz guy. So it's just like, it was just standing pat. We should have moved up and made some moves.
Okay. This series I've been doing is about storylines across each NFL team, been going by division. So this week is the NFC East. So I'm going to start off with the Cowboys. To me, it's plenty of storylines with Dallas. One of the biggest storylines for me is how long can Jason Garrett hold on in Dallas? Because, Jason Garrett, he's a nice guy. Seems like a really nice dude. He was a really good offensive coordinator. But as a head coach, he seems like he's continually put, uninspired teams out on the field. And, I know there you have the rumors of, him just being a pet and this and that and the other. But then it's like when you get up and you see his press conferences, man, it's just like he's so monotone. And, he can't help that. That's just how he is. But, my question is, how long can Jason Garrett hold on in Dallas? Because he's been here, I think this is year 9 that he's going into, 2 playoff appearances, 1 victory. So how long, in your opinion, can Jason Garrett hold on in Dallas, given his relationship or cozy relationship with Jerry Jones?
I think Jason Garrett, I think he's a decent coach, but I think with everybody that comes into Dallas, what every Cowboy fan knows is that, they may be the figurehead of the coach, but Jerry is pretty much running and got his hands on everything.
Right.
And in a sense, with Jason Garrett, it's more evident that he's a puppet and that he really, is, on the beck and call of Jerry Jones. But, if you watch the Amazon series of the Cowboys season last year, you do come to see Jason Garrett with a little bit of personality. He definitely swears more than I thought he would. Looking at him on the sideline. So that kind of showed me a little bit that he does have a little bit of gumption about him. But I do definitely feel that if the Cowboys don't, do well and go deep into the playoffs or make it to the playoffs, that this is Jason Garrett's last year, and you can just tell because the proof is pretty much in the pudding. When you start making changes as far as like firing special teams coaches and position coaches and things like that to try to like shake things up in the Cowboys organization, which is what we did this year,
right?
Then it's safe to say that the next step is the head coach, so or the coordinators and stuff like that. So I don't feel like Jason Garrett is one of the longest tenured head coaches in the NFL, alongside of like Marvin Jones, people like that.
Right.
So to me, I feel like if he doesn't make it into the playoffs, he doesn't go deep into the playoffs. With the way our division is going, he might lose the ear of the players, and they would have no choice but to go in another direction, because going anything less than the playoffs is like you backsliding, because last year he only got a pass because of what happened with Zeke Elliot missing the 6 games, which is a whole nother other story that I won't get into and how I feel about that. But that's why he got a pass last year. So last year you get a pass. The year before that you go 13-3. So this year we're expecting around that with Zeke, even minus Dez and Jason Witten. We still expect at least 10 games and win 10 games and get in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, and that's a reasonable to be honest, that's a reasonable expectation, because as teams have proven year in and year out, if you can run the ball, you can go really, really far in the National Football League. And you talked about 2016, and I'm gonna tie this into another big storyline for Dallas. 2016, Dallas went 13-3, and of course Dak Prescott caught everybody off guard. Well, I say everybody, maybe everybody except Dallas coaches, with what he did. He was the offensive rookie of the year that year, led them to a 13-3 record, 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Then comes in last year, has a bit of a sophomore slump, 22 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, and a 9-7 record. So with Dak, me personally, I think the biggest thing that Dallas has to do when it comes to Dak is they have to find out what kind of quarterback do they have in him. They got to find out if he's their guy of the future, or is he just like a middle-of-the-road type of guy that may be able to get them through to the next 2-3 years. And personally, I like Dak. I think Dak has a bright future in front of him. But I think with Dallas, they got to answer the question, is he more so the Dak Prescott of 2016, or is he more so the Dak Prescott of 2017? And then also, I guess you could ask if he's the Dak Prescott of 2017, but they also have to ask the question, well, did he have that slump last year because of the suspension with Zeke and just how big of a part Zeke is into that offense? Or was it a little bit of NFL defenses finally had, a decent amount of film on him and they were able to kind of neutralize him a little bit? So I kind of want to get your opinion on Dak when it comes to, what Dallas needs to address with him as far as this year and the future goes.
Yeah, I feel like Dak he's more, and we, really take it, we sit back and look at it after his career is over. I think we'll find that he's more of the 2016 quarterback, and you would just see him progress into almost like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning type quarterback. I know there's high expectations, but just watching the poise that he has in the pocket, if you watch his poise compared to that of Peyton Manning, that of Tom Brady, it's pretty similar. The way he, stands tall in the pocket and, delivers the ball and generally makes quick decisions when it's, time. I think with what happened with him last year in 2017, it was, the Zeke fiasco, the fact that, Dez Bryant, not being able to get the separation that, we needed, and, for a young quarterback, he needs playmakers to, make plays. And the biggest playmaker that he had a lot of the times to help him out was Ezekiel Elliott. And then also alongside of that was the offensive line deterioration with Tyron Smith, his back injury. So we don't know if that's going to be a prolonged thing. But we did address our offensive line this year. And so we've moved Lael Collins into guard, which is what he's generally better at. And then we recruited a I forgot his last name, but first name, but Fleming from the Patriots.
Okay.
He'll be our new right tackle, and so we'll be better to protect Dak because last year he wasn't able to be protected the way he should be. And if you look back at the Atlanta game, we got sacked like 10, 12 times.
Right.
That just goes to show we weren't able to keep him upright, along with Zeke being out. So it was a lot of compounded things. And then you gave the defensive coordinators a year to adjust to him. So all of those things happened to Dak at once, which I think was a great learning experience for him. And I think with that and the questions that we're currently talking about, is he more so the 2017 or 2016 quarterback? I feel like Dak is hearing those things, and the competitor that I think he is, I think he's going to respond in dramatic fashion this year and put aside those questions that we do have. And then going forward, we'll be like, how great can Dak Prescott be? Is he going to be the savior that takes us to the Super Bowl, or is he how great can he be? That'll be the next question that we'll have to ask, I think, after this year.
Okay. And me, I like to give Cowboy fans a hard time, but I do have to give Dak Prescott his props. I actually like Dak Prescott a lot as a quarterback, and like I said, I think he's going to have a great future. And I really think, and I agree with you in the fact that last year was a great learning experience for him, because we all know as we were coming up as kids, anytime you're learning something new or you're learning new experiences, that's going to help you down the line. At the time, it's not fun. And you could tell last year, Dak at times was just like, bruh, like I'm getting killed out here. But at the same time, I honestly believe, like you said, it's going to be a great learning experience for him that'll serve him well down the road. And I think now talking about Zeke, I was actually going to ask one more. Well, actually, you know what? I'll talk about Zeke a little bit later. I got another question for you. You talked about the playmakers at Dallas that Dak would need in order to be successful like every other quarterback. How big of an impact do you think Jason Witten's retirement and then Dez being released, how big of an impact do you think that's going to have on Dallas's offense, losing those two guys in one offseason?
I think just from an experience standpoint, it'll be big. We have playoff aspirations. And if you've never been in a playoff situation, on the NFL level, the way, people get gunshot, come playoff time. And to have those proven guys there, I think, that was a big thing. I'm hoping, I don't know much about the guys that they have coming in, like Gilliam and, those other guys. I don't really know too much about them. Allen Hurns. I don't really know how they're going to perform in the pressure situations. I still yet to be determined. So that's the only thing that I could, we're really going to miss that experience from those guys that, coming through in the clutch for us and, making those plays. But I feel like, receiver, much like DB, it has a lot to do with bravado and ego and things like that.
Right.
And a lot of times their ego and bravado can get them through a lot of tough situations because they have that faith that they could always get open, they could always make the catch. And it's just really just that game never really changes. It's about getting open and catching the ball. So I just hope that they can do that in the tough situations, which we will need to have these playoff aspirations. And if they aren't able to do that, then that would be something that would hinder us and, draw some questions about, maybe we should have held on to Dez one more year, maybe like a 1 year improve it type deal. Let them know, like, this is your last year. If you don't perform, we're going to cut you. So, that's yet to be determined. But we will miss them from an experience standpoint and definitely a leadership standpoint because Jason Witten was definitely, I feel like, one of the biggest leaders on the whole team,
right.
As far as his work ethic goes and how he, his professionalism and how he, never missed a game or missed 2 games in,
right.
15 seasons or something like that. That's, dedication. So from that standpoint, we're going to miss those guys.
It's funny you said that because I was actually looking at my notes whenever you were talking about Jason Witten, and he was one of those dudes that, and I agree, they're going to miss Jason Witten big time from a leadership standpoint because Jason Witten was one of those guys that he was one of those stabilizing forces in the locker room who could really kind of, stabilize. Well, he could really kind of bring some calmness, to the locker room during those rough patches in the season because, you and I both know we played football. You know how long the season can be. Football is a grueling sport, and after a while, the grind, it really takes a toll on you. And, both from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint. And, Jason Witten was one of those guys, and when guys get mentally tired, they get frustrated or, if a guy is just not having a good game or a good stretch in the season, whenever those little rough patches come up or, if dudes have a blow up in the locker room, he was one of those dudes that could really kind of, stabilize the locker room and kind of bring guys together. So I absolutely agree with you on the leadership standpoint with Jason Witten. As far as Dez Bryant goes, like I'm actually shocked that Dez has not been picked up by a team. I guess I can't say I'm shocked. I am kind of surprised that he's still a free agent because Dez, he still has, some decent football left in him. I think I wrote down some stats from last year. He had like 868 yards, receiving yards last year, and I can't remember how many touchdowns. He still got some decent football left in him. There it is. He had 69 catches, 838 yards, 6 touchdowns last season. So I mean, it's not terrible from a production standpoint. It's not anything that you want your number one wide receiver. You don't want to see those kind of numbers from him when you're paying him like they were paying him. But are you surprised to see Dez still out of a job?
Well, at first I was surprised at first, and then as I really thought about it, I just came to the realization Dez Bryant is possibly not going to play this year at all. And I think what happened with Dez is kind of like what happened with T.O. and Ocho Cinco and, guys like that, Chad Johnson,
right.
Is that, perception is reality. So when they look and see Dez Bryant, huffing and puffing on the sideline, being, yelling and being frustrated and things like that, we don't know what that's about. He could be saying, come on, guys, let's go. We need to, go give it 110% and all that kind of stuff like that. But we just see, the way in which he's acting. And so I think a lot of coaches looked at that. And then if you go back and look at the tape, he's really limited into the routes that he could, that he's effective at. And, in today's game, you got to be able to play every wide receiver position there is. You can't just be able to do play the one, be the number one receiver, and you can't do anything else. And I think I don't know either through Dez Bryant or through the Cowboys, one or the other, he never did that in Dallas or never was asked to do that in Dallas, and that hindered him being able to be marketed to other teams. And then there's reports that he turned down an offer to go to the Ravens, which, would have been, because he wants to supposedly get back at the Cowboys for releasing him. And he probably should have took that deal because, now that's looking like his only deal. And, people say, oh, he's been offered other deals and stuff like that. But the thing is, he wants just a 1-year improvement deal so he can come back and make more money. But it's like, Dez, when you were getting paid big bucks, you had 3 years where you were dropping off. And where you put it through injury, what have you, maybe, but when you step on that field, there's no excuses, So if you decided to play through that injury and you knew you were hurt, then maybe you should have sat out because everything once you step on that field, everything will be held against you. Nobody's going to give you any shortcuts or anything like that. So it's my belief that he's not going to get picked up because you think about it when you come into camp. Quarterback has to build that relationship with the receiver to understand where the receiver is going to be, get that timing down. So the only way Dez Bryant gets picked up by a team, to me, is if some receiver gets hurt and then he's able to come in and fill that void.
Yep, the same. And I absolutely agree. He's going to have to wait for a training camp injury or possibly even a late season injury. Now, if he gets lucky, he might be able. Some team out there down the line in the playoffs might, take a leap at him, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of like you. I'm leaning towards Dez probably won't play this year. Because and then too, Dallas didn't help him with the timeline that they released him on. I think what was it, like a week or two before the draft that they let him go. So I think he he caught a tough break this year. But, like I said, it is what it is, basically. And as far we talked about Zeke a little bit earlier. We made a mention of Zeke. And I was just telling somebody the other day that if I'm a Cowboys fan, I got to really be happy with the way the offseason is going as far as Zeke is concerned, because you haven't heard Zeke's name being mentioned in the headlines this year for any of the wrong things, really for the first time since he's been in the league. I mean, 2016 or summer 2016, Zeke is not like a bad guy. Zeke likes to party. He likes to have a good time. And he's one of those guys that I really think that, he doesn't mean harm to anybody, but he's kind of one of those dudes that he might not know when to quit when it comes to having fun. And then I think sometimes that may cross the line. And, last year, we heard the rumor that he knocked out a DJ at a club and this and that and the other. And, of course, the incident with the young lady that I won't go into, we've all heard about that. So as far as this offseason goes, this is really like the first time where we've almost been like the whole offseason not hearing Zeke Elliott's name being in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So for me, at least for me on the outside looking in, it seems to me that Zeke just might have his head in the right place coming into the season. So do you think this year will serve as a really good bounce back season for Zeke? Because even though he was suspended for 6 games last year, Zeke still had some decent numbers. He was just 17 yards away from 1,000 yards rushing in 10 games. So how are you feeling about Zeke's bounce back year in 2018?
I'm excited. Anytime Zeke is available to us, I feel like we're a much better team to have Zeke than to not have him. He's definitely, probably if not, maybe outside of Sean Lee, one of the most important players on our team. And, we pretty much go as he goes. And so I think, other teams knowing that, they're definitely going to pay attention to him more, especially without us not having having Dez. But, I think, that's up to our coordinators to figure out how to combat that. I know a lot of times it doesn't matter if we have 8, 9 guys in the box, we're still running the ball. So I definitely look to see Zeke bounce back and have a great year this year. I just hope that, we're able to also develop some other weapons on offense so that everybody just doesn't game plan for Zeke, which is the main thing that you probably should game plan for if you're playing the Cowboys. Because if you stop Zeke, you might have a better day. But if Zeke gets going and then Dak gets going and we're rolling on all cylinders, we're not going to lose, I don't feel like. So I definitely look forward to seeing what Zeke does this year. I hope he stays healthy and is able to be an effective member of our team.
As far as the wide receiver position goes, who does Dallas have at the wide receiver position? I know they brought in Allen Hurns for the chance to be their one wide receiver. They've got Tavon Austin and Deontay Thompson. They drafted what was that guy's name? Michael Gallup. So I guess from that standpoint, what are you looking forward to out of the Dallas wide receiver group coming into 2018?
I think that's the thing. I don't really know what to expect, honestly. The only thing that I can expect is that somebody reveals themselves as a true number one, as a true playmaking receiver. I think the guy that probably has the best ability to do that is Michael Gallup. Allen Hurns, I think he's a good complementary receiver. I would like to see Terrence Williams step up as well. I know we have a plethora of receivers, and all of those guys are, they're just guys. And so, as long as I just hope that they can get open, make plays. That's the biggest thing. If you could just get open, because that was one of the things that we struggle with as far as Dez. A lot of times teams are playing Dez one-on-one. And I think one of the things also that will help the Cowboys this year is the efforts that they're making to make the offense Dak friendly, which I feel like is, changing passing concepts and things like that. because a lot of the plays in which Dak has been running the last couple of years, I feel like there's still some of that Tony Romo type of passing concepts
right,
and stuff like that. So I think with that change, we might see Dak develop more as a passer because, you know, going into the season, we're going to know that people are going to key on the run. So the way to get people out of keying on the run is throw the ball. So I look for us to open up throwing the ball a little bit more. I just hope that the guys can get open, they can make plays, they can stay healthy, because we don't have that guy yet. So I think over the process of this year, you know, my hopes are somebody develops themselves to be that guy we can look at and say, oh, Dallas has him, he's going to be a problem. You know, kind of like with Odell Beckham. Nobody really, you know, heard of him in college. If you watched college football, you thought he was a pretty decent player, but you didn't know he was going to be this, you know, that he is right now. So I'm hoping we can get like an Odell Beckham situation. Somebody just comes out of nowhere and just solidifies themselves as a star for the Cowboys in a skilled position on offense.
okay. And as far as like in going, I was actually kind of surprised to see Dallas let Bryce Butler go as well because he played really well last season. So I think they took an L with that one. I personally I think Dallas probably should have did a little bit more to keep Bryce Butler, but you know it's just one of those things. It is what it is. It's how the NFL works sometimes. Okay, so we're talking about the NFC East. And your rival over in Philly just won the Super Bowl. So how does it feel as a Cowboys fan, knowing how long Dallas has been wanting the Super Bowl, knowing how long Dallas has been gunning for one? How does it feel as a Cowboy fan to see your rival win one of the most thrilling Super Bowl victories, you know, really in NFL history? How did that make you feel as a Cowboys fan, sitting back watching a team in your own division, like, man, that should be us holding that trophy? How'd that make you feel?
Honestly, it made me want to throw up. I was a little depressed for a couple months after that just because I hate the Eagles and I don't like any team in our division. I don't really, I guess for me, the Eagles are, you know, they won one Super Bowl. What did he do? You know, so
right.
It's kind of like that. But, you know, you know, it's kind of like if Dallas doesn't win it, I don't want anybody from our division to win it. So when they did win it, it was a little soaking involved. And it just, you know, I guess, you know, they won that. And, you know, you kind of like have to give them their props and, you know, let them, you know, relish in that moment. But in the moment, it just sucked. I was just depressed. And then now you have to look at it like, oh, man, like they won it. Like, are they going to, you know, are we going to be able to compete with these guys going forward, or is this something like what we did in the 90s? Do they go off on a run like that?
Right.
Just like, man, I hope not. But, you know, you never know with these things. So, you know, when they won, I was like, okay, they won one. And then after, you know, I thought about it after I got over it. I was like, okay, as long as they don't win another one, I'm okay.
Right. Or if they do win another one, let the Cowboys win one in between, huh?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I tell the Eagles fans all the time, they rub it into my face about winning the Super Bowl. And I was like, oh, that's great. You got 4 more to catch up before you're relevant.
You crazy. Hey, so I guess we'll talk a little bit about the Eagles. I mean, because it seems like with the Eagles, man, it seems like they may have actually gotten a little stronger since the Super Bowl, or at least if they didn't get stronger, they may have stayed about the same because now they got Carson Wentz coming back into the lineup. The defense is still pretty much intact. I won't go too much in depth to the Eagles because I know you hate them. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on them. But what are your thoughts on the Eagles coming into 2018? I'll just leave it kind of generic like that.
I think the Eagles are a very formidable foe in the NFC East. I think they are the team to beat in the NFC East currently, as currently constructed. They are the team to beat. You know, you got to give them their respect there. You got to respect them in that aspect. And I think, you know, with Carson Wentz coming back, that is a viable weapon. But I would be remiss if I didn't, you know, bring up the fact that he did just have basically like reconstructive knee surgery. So there's a possibility that Carson Wentz while it's not a possibility, it is a fact that he's not going to be the same player that we saw before that injury. You tear your knee up like he did,
right?
And if he comes back the first game and tries to play the whole season, I think, it could be a possibility of maybe re-injuring that knee, or there's a possibility that, he does show some regression from the player that we knew him to be.
Right.
So I think that, is something to look at. And also think, they have increased their defense, signing Michael Bennett and Haloti Ngata. They've gotten strong on their defensive front, and they're going to, get some players back that they had injured last year. But I think, for me as a Cowboys fan, one of the things that I take confidence in is the fact that one of their greatest strengths, which is their pass rush, is, going up against one of our greatest strengths, which is our offensive line. So, I feel confident that in that aspect. I feel like, the thing for me, for Philly, I feel like where they have some weaknesses, defensive secondary, but, once again, I don't know if we have the offensive weapons to exploit that. I also feel like, their skill position as far as receivers, I think they're pretty decent, but I don't think they're something that you should fear so much as, like a Pittsburgh Steelers, Antonio Brown or Juju Smith. You would, fear them a little bit more than you fearing the, Eagles receivers. So,
right.
I think, they can be beat, just like any team. And then also, I always think about this, and it just came to mind. There's always, for the most part, a Super Bowl slump that some teams, suffer from. So, maybe they celebrated a little too long, a little too hard, and, pat themselves on the back a little too much. And,
right.
Went on an extra little trip, and, visited a couple little ladies and, party, drank a little too much.
Got that
and they're not ready, so,
right.
As a Cowboys fan, I pray for all those things. I'll take all of that. I'll receive it.
I like that. I like it. Believe it, you shall receive it, huh?
That's right.
So we got your analysis on Philly. The Giants, they were one of the worst teams in the league last year. They ended up going 2-14. I can't even talk too much trash on the Giants because one of their 2 wins last year came against Denver in Denver, and I still remember that game because that game had me hot as fish grease, man. But I mean, because it was like, dude, the Broncos, they made the Giants look like a playoff team in that game last year. And I don't even think Denver scored a point up until it was like the third quarter, I think, before Denver got anything on the board. And they couldn't get any pressure on Eli. I mean, I think they sacked him a few times, but they were running the ball down the Broncos' throats. They was passing all over Denver. And it was just like, dude, what is this the Broncos and I'm even watching right now? I mean, it was like Denver forgot they had a game that day against all teams. So, so I can't talk too much trash on New York, but you mentioned OBJ a little bit earlier. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him back on the field. So, with all that being said, what are your thoughts on the New York Giants coming into this season?
I do want to say this before I go too far into it, but I definitely lost some money on the Broncos losing to the Giants because I definitely picked Broncos defense in one of my fantasy leagues, and
right.
I picked a couple of their receivers in fantasy, and they definitely underperformed and cost me a fantasy game that was for money, and those were the last 2 things I was banking on. So yeah, that definitely hurt me a lot.
Right.
But this year, I feel like the Giants will be. It's hard to say because I don't have faith in Eli at all. I think Eli is an overrated, overhyped quarterback that is going to give at some point. Like Charles Woodson said, if you keep playing, Eli's going to throw you the ball. Or he said that about Jay Cutler, but
right.
I'll apply that to Eli as well. If you keep playing long enough, eventually Eli's going to throw you the ball. And we know that. We've seen that over the years. He has a high turnover rate, which really baffles me as to how people equate him to, being a great quarterback. But, I guess the fact that he won 2 Super Bowls, which, everybody, attributes to him, which
Right.
I don't understand because it was pretty much their defense, which is where they are going to suffer a bit because of the loss of JPP going to the Buccaneers. So there's going to be a downslope as far as their defensive production goes. But the good thing is that they did get some new offensive linemen to help protect Eli, and then they also got a running back in Saquon Barkley to kind of like help Eli out so that he doesn't have to shoulder the load, which he's been doing the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that, to me, I think, everybody's big on Saquon Barkley, and I think he's going to be decent. But I don't think he's going to be first. Like, when we look back at it, I don't think we're going to be like, wow, the Giants really got a great player in Saquon Barkley. I think he'll be decent, but to me, in college, when he played in the big games, oftentimes when he played against good competition, he was nowhere to be found. And to me, that speaks volumes going into the NFL. When he played against Ohio State, which is one of the biggest, best defenses in the college football, he was nowhere to be found. He scored a touchdown, but the touchdown was on the special teams. And the games where he, did exceptionally well, it was against Iowa, and they're traditionally known to have a good defense. But when you really, break it down, are their defense, is their defense that, that good? And you probably would say so because of what they did to Ohio State. So, to me, I don't know. I'm not sold on Saquon Barkley just yet. I'm going to have to see, what he does this year. And, the next couple years, and then I'll probably be sold on him. But I have some skepticism when it comes to him. And I think that, with the offensive line, they reshuffled some guys around and they brought some new guys in. But I feel like there's still going to be some issues there as far as running the ball. And with that, I feel that they'll be a decent team. They might finish somewhere maybe 8-8. They might win 10 games as well. I don't necessarily know where they fit in. It just a lot depends on the health of Eli. The Eli that does show up this season, does Odell Beckham stay healthy? Does Saquon Barkley stay healthy?
Right.
But I definitely feel that their defense is something that is going to suffer a bit with the loss of JPP, and we'll see what kind of like what happens with that now going forward. But I think the way I see it. NFC East breaking down is the Cowboys. The Cowboys or the Eagles. They're tossed for number one,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Eagles. Not the Eagles, but the Giants at the third position, and then I feel that the Redskins will finish fourth.
Okay, I'm actually surprised to hear you say that about Saquon, man, because it's like so many NFL scouts were enamored with this dude with the combine. You had people going as far, as saying he was the best player in the draft. And I still remember, when he did his bench day and he hit 225 29 times. I still remember my Instagram and my Facebook feeds, both of them were blowing up with people going off about his combine reps. And then, of course, he had the 41.5-inch vertical leap and a 4.410, not a 4.410, and then a 4.440. So, it was like, I guess that's not a big surprise. The NFL and scouts, they do this every year come combine time. But I also kind of think that may be why – that's kind of why I tell people, kind of like you were just kind of going back to what you were just saying, not to get caught up in combine numbers, because combine numbers, you're not going up against competition. You're just taking a bunch of measurements. And, that's fine. It gives you an idea of – a guy's power, of his explosiveness, of his, his football IQ and things like that. But the tail comes out on the tape. So, going back to what you were saying, I'm actually kind of surprised to hear you say that about Saquon, because you honestly, about maybe one or two people that I've heard say that about Saquon. Everybody else is they just know this dude's gonna come in and just wreck it. So that's kind of refreshing to hear you say that.
And also just Penn State doesn't have a good track record of producing good, running backs, whether that be for some reason or another, when a player from Penn State that's a running back does well at Penn State and then they come to the NFL, they traditionally do bad. And they get drafted high, and there's these high marks on them. It's almost like a curse in a sense, like the Madden curse or something like that. It's almost something like that about Penn State. They bring these players in, and then they don't fulfill the potential that you have for them. So, I hope I'm wrong. I don't, wish bad on him or anything, but I just, he's gonna have to prove it to me. He's a prove it person to me. Like, I think, in college he was decent, but college he was really good. Let me correct that. He was really good, but to me he was really good against, bad teams. When you play the tough teams, where were you? What did you do?
Right.
And that's the thing people need to look at. And then people say, oh, what he did against Iowa. Okay. Well, there's always outliers. You could always point to one thing, but, in the NFL, every night you're going against Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? You know what I'm saying? So we'll see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, Shannon Sharp says this all the time on Undisputed is, show me what's on the tape. I don't want to hear nothing about measurements. I don't want to hear about combines. Put the tape in and show me what this dude can do. So I absolutely agree with you on that one. As far as OBJ goes, he's coming back. He had a forgettable 2017. He only played 4 games last year before he got injured. Man, I want to see what OBJ does this year because he's already up. Well, he wants an extension. He's let that be known. If OBJ stays out of trouble and he doesn't even have to have a big year, but if he has a big year, because this dude's going to get paid next offseason. So what are you looking forward to from Odell Beckham Jr. This coming up season?
You know what? I'm going to be honest. As a Cowboys fan, I know this is probably like the worst thing you can say is I'm a bit of an Odell Beckham fan. I wish he was a Cowboy. Only time I don't like Odell Beckham is when we play him. And then, generally he doesn't play good against us except for that one catch, and people fail to realize is that the Giants lost that game. That was the bright spot in that game. He made that catch, and that was it. So, I think, I would like, I think to me, the NFL is a little bit funner to watch when Odell Beckham is healthy because you want to see him score, you want to see him dance, stuff like that.
Right.
You want to see what he's going to do. So it's like he's one of those players you want to see what he wants to do. And I think that's one of the things, if he can stay healthy, that's one of the things the Giants have to pay him for is because people want to tune in to see what Odell Beckham is going to do against, X team, Y team, what is he going to do against those players? And then, the better corners, with what happened with Josh Norman, now Josh Norman's in the division, you're tuning in every time the Giants play the Redskins.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're going to tune in anytime that Odell Beckham goes against the Talibs and any other top corners in the NFL. You want to see those matchups now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, he should bounce back and have a pretty decent year. I know he works tremendously hard. He's one of the people I follow on Instagram. And is always working hard, always working on his craft. So, I just, like I said, as I watch Odell Beckham, I feel like he's going to do great things. I just hope it's not against the Cowboys.
I can see that. I can understand that. You made mention of the Redskins, and I wanted to ask you about that. Well, before I even get to that, like you were talking about, people tune in to see OBJ. They want to see he's entertaining. He brings that kind of like he brings some sauce to the game, especially with his end zone celebrations and things like that. And and when you were saying that, it kind of made me think back to the time when T.O. and Chad Ochocinco, when they were basically trying to outshine each other as far as like the touchdown celebrations and things like that. It kind of took me back to that time when you said that, because that's a big reason why people watch football. And it's not the biggest reason, of course, but people do like to see what these guys are going to do when they score. And, you've heard even some I know I've watched some interviews where they've asked NFL players, what is it like to score a touchdown in the National Football League? And one of the guys, he straight up said, he's like, man, it's orgasmic because it's a feeling like no other. And it was funny when he said it, but I can absolutely understand where he's coming from. Because I scored touchdowns in high school, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. So I can just imagine what it would be like on this level. So, I agree with you that people tune in to be entertained. And I'm glad, and speaking of that, I'm glad the NFL, I am so glad the NFL finally took this grip off of the end zone celebrations because it was just like, dude, let these dudes celebrate. You have no idea how hard it is to score a touchdown in the National Football League. Football is a hard game, and it's hard to win in the NFL. So I was so glad when the NFL finally pulled their heads out of their butts and was like, okay, let these dudes celebrate and let them have fun. Because that's one of the reasons why I watch the game. I want to see what guys like OBJ are going to do when they score. So, but that's just me.
I agree. I think OBJ and those guys, the NFL is fun. It's supposed to be fun. And I think, when those guys are doing the celebrations and they're dancing and things like that, it brings some kind of, entertainment value to the game, and it adds an extra, want to watch the games. Because sometimes, honestly, when you look at, let's say the Pittsburgh Steelers play the Jets, you're not watching for the game because you know the Steelers are going to kill the Jets. But
Right.
You want to see what Antonio Brown's going to do when he gets in the end zone.
Right.
Or how many times can he get to the end zone. So that, along with, like the fantasy factor of fantasy football is one of the things that, makes watching the NFL fun because of games like that.
Right.
Sometimes you don't even watch games, for the game itself. You're watching because of somebody on your fantasy team, and you want to see, how he's going to do, and that draws you into the game. So
Right.
It's really more about entertainment at this point because we know that all the games that are going to be played are not going to be entertaining to watch.
Exactly. You know what? One thing I think the NFL forgets is at the end of the day, these dudes, they're entertainers. They're put on the field to entertain fans, and they're put on the field to entertain. That's what the NFL is all about. It's an entertaining product, and I think the NFL and these officials or these NFL executives, I think they forget that, and it's they want these guys to act like soldiers. When they score these touchdowns sometimes, but it's like, dude. Even though these guys are not movie stars, they're not musicians. Some of them may do it on the side and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, professional sports is just another arm of entertainment. So it's like, dude, let these dudes have fun. Let them entertain the fans. Everybody goes home happy. Well, everybody goes home happy except the team who lost. But anyway, moving on. Last team in the NFC East that I'll ask you about is the Washington Redskins. They went 7-9 last year. They finished up third in the division. To me, the biggest storyline for the Redskins is the most obvious one, with Alex Smith, that era officially beginning. And I was shocked when this trade went through. I think, most of the NFL was shocked when this trade went through because I don't think this was a trade that anybody saw coming. We all knew that they were going to get rid of Kirk Cousins. They were going to let him walk because they had made that blatantly clear. That they had made it clear that they weren't going to sign him to a long-term deal. They kind of floated it out there that they might franchise him, but they made it clear that that he wasn't in their plans long-term. So when this trade went through, I was shocked, not so much that the Redskins pulled it off, but I was shocked that the Chiefs traded Alex Smith after the year he had. So, with Alex Smith coming over to the Redskins after throwing for over 4,000 yards in Kansas City last year, what are you looking for from the Redskins in 2018 as far as a divisional foe?
I look for the Redskins to be good and terrible. Honestly, I can't. I say I hate all the teams in our division pretty much all the time, and that's halfway joking, but I really hate the Redskins. I wish as a Cowboys fan, I think that's the team in our division that we truly cannot stand. And, and that's to be given. That's our rival team,
right?
In the division, really. And I can honestly say I've never liked a Redskin player, ever.
What?
There's not one Redskin player I can say, you know what, I enjoy watching him play. I can't stand watching any of them play.
Not even Darryl Green?
No, I can't stand Darryl Green. Oh my God. I was like, get him out of here. Yeah, nobody on the Redskins. The colors are terrible. The fans are terrible. They don't even have any fans except for in Washington. I've never met a Washington Redskins fan that existed outside of Washington, and I hope to never see him. So I think, with Alex Smith, they definitely improved. I'm definitely gonna miss Kirk Cousins throwing us the ball a lot. He was definitely one of the. He was the 12th player on our defense. Kirk Cousins delivered some games to the Cowboys, and I cannot.
Yes, he
I'm
did.
gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss Kirk Cousins. He was the reason. He was the reason we won a lot of games. And I think, with Alex Smith coming, the only thing that I can anticipate with Alex Smith is that we know he's not going to throw the ball deep, so that helps.
Right, true.
We can kind of scrunch our coverage up a little bit and play, the shorter windows because, we know he's not really overall comfortable pushing the ball downfield, which, will help us out a bit because Kirk Cousins was, and, sometimes burnt us, when he wasn't throwing us the ball. So Alex Smith does bring that unknown to, the division. And, I don't know. I don't really, I don't think they have the weapons to really challenge us as far as, offensive weapons, receiver-wise. So
right.
I think that's why I feel like they'll be last in the division. But I think Alex Smith is an improvement from Kirk Cousins. And, defense is, fairly decent, but I don't see them being a real problem. Josh Norman is probably the only guy that's, respectable on their defense. And Ryan Kerrigan, of course, I'm sorry.
Right.
Forget him. But, to me, Ryan Kerrigan, when he plays against us, I'm not worried about him. I'm really not really worried about Josh Norman either, honestly. Nobody on the Redskins scares me. Playing the Redskins, I'm like, okay, we should win this game. We lose this game, then it's like, why did we lose to the Redskins?
Right. And you brought up Josh Norman. To me, Josh Norman, he's a good cornerback, but I don't know. I think I remember when he was over in Carolina those few years. I remember, everybody made that big, they made that big fuss about him, being a shutdown corner and da-da-da-da. To me, it seems like it was more so scheme for Josh Norman in Carolina than anything. Because, he's decent, but I don't think he's the cornerback that a lot of people tried to make him out to be. So, I think you're right there that, the Redskins really don't have a threat. As far as Alex Smith goes, you said, he doesn't push the ball down the field a lot. And I remember he was like captain check down in Kansas City. You might see him throw, those 10, 15-yard routes every once in a while, but that's really about it. Alex Smith is, he's captain check down. But the thing I have to give him on that one is he very rarely turned the ball over. He took care of the ball big time in Kansas City. Just last year, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So I guess from that standpoint, Washington, they won that trade there because, Kirk Cousins, like you said, he could be a turnover machine. So speaking of Kirk Cousins, I want to get your thoughts on his contract up in Minnesota. 3 years fully guaranteed. Given the kind of quarterback that you feel Kirk Cousins is, what were your thoughts on that Minnesota deal that he got from them?
The deal that Kirk Cousins got from Minnesota, I just feel like they got fleeced. They got robbed. They got robbed. Like, it's just like what were y'all watching? Like, I understand he's better than Case Keenum, but did y'all not see the way he threw the ball to, Dallas? Did y'all not see, how he did, cost the Redskins some games? I don't know. I just, I wouldn't have paid him that much money. I know that. I wouldn't have paid him that much. That's on them. They could have probably, took somebody in the draft, maybe.
Right.
If you really, but I understand you want a proven guy. I just don't understand how. I guess in the playoffs, I guess they thought they get better with Kirk Cousins. Which I don't see that. And you got a new offensive coordinator in that. Maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, I don't have no faith in Kirk Cousins. I don't. It's like, what are you guys doing? So
right.
Yeah.
And going back, my bad. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to touch on the Josh Norman aspect of what you were talking about. With
Oh,
him.
yeah.
It definitely was the scheme aspect. What Josh Norman is, he's a cover 3, corner. And one of the things that also helps Josh Norman is the aspect to talk trash and to get into a receiver's head.
Right.
And with talking trash, it has two effects. If somebody is weak-minded, they can get caught up in that. You take them off their game.
Mm-hmm.
Or it amplifies them and they tune in, and then they're extra paying attention and they're extra motivated to embarrass you as a corner. So I think, with him, if you can't talk, you can't get into somebody's head and he's not in the right scheme, then, he's getting exposed majority of the time. So
right. And going back to Kirk Cousins, Minnesota, to me, it speaks of desperation with the kind of contract that they gave him because, good NFL quarterbacks are rare. I mean, I get it, the quarterback market, I know all of that. But at the end of the day, man, for what they gave Kirk Cousins to be an unproven quarterback, to me, I mean, I think they could have even kept Case Keenum and just see what he would do for another year. Or, like you said, they could have just drafted a guy. But, $84 million for a guy who hadn't even sniffed the Super Bowl, I wouldn't have done it. And I don't know. I think that contract might end up – I think Minnesota's going to pay for that contract dearly because they got quite a few guys coming up for free agency next year. Stephon Diggs, I know for a fact, is coming up on free agency next year. So I think Minnesota might end up paying dearly for that contract. But we'll see. But
yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, the Vikings won't be able to pay Stephon Diggs, and we always will have a spot for him in Dallas. So,
right?
We'll make room for Stephon Diggs in Dallas, and the Vikings could be stuck with Kirk Cousins, who's never. I mean, Case Keenum took you to the NFC East, championship game,
right.
And of course he lost, but I mean, it's going against the Super Bowl champs who beat the New England Patriots. So
right.
For them to go to Kirk Cousins after that is just, I mean, it's baffling. It's just like, what are you doing?
Right,
like,
exactly. I didn't get it either. I really didn't get it. But man, that's all the questions that I had. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. As always, just want to say, man, you're doing a great job. I definitely, tune into the podcast when I can, and I'm not getting swamped with work. So, I'm definitely checking you out at work, and just tell you that you're doing a great job. Keep going forward with it. Excited to see what my Cowboys do. Hope to make it to a few games out your way. Maybe this year I can make it out there. So. But I'll definitely keep checking you out and keep doing good things, man.
Hey, man, well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you joining me here on the Undrafted Podcast.
Man, it's always a pleasure, man.
All right, God bless. Well, that's my time for this episode of the Undrafted Podcast. Thank you to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me with the gifts, talents, and resources to do this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, you can follow the Undrafted Podcast on Instagram at the Undrafted Podcast, or on Twitter at The Undrafted Pod. On the next episode of The Undrafted Podcast, we'll talk about the NFC North and the great competition going on between Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, and second-year quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Undrafted Podcast. And remember, do your best and let God handle the rest. Be blessed.